Welcome to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. I'm Tammi Mack, and according to NBC, most estimates say that about 2% of high school students in the United States identify as gender diverse. To put that in perspective, that is about 1 out of every 50. But what are they doing with this gender diversity? Are they fully transitioning from one gender to another, socially transitioning? And are children old enough to decide whether they should transition from one gender to another? Let's get down to business. Please welcome artist and community cultivator, Never Ending Nina. Hi, Nina.
Hello. Thank you for having me again.
Welcome back. P-Valley actress and trans activist Tony Bryce is here. Hi, Tony. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Dr. Raphael Usher on board. Hi, Dr. Usher.
How you guys doing today? Thanks for having me on board.
And the host of Black Conservative Perspective, Greg Foreman, is with us as well. The first question that we'll kick off with is why? Why should Black people care about children transitioning from one gender to another? Dr. Usher, kick this off.
Well, this is why it's important, because one of the things that we need to understand about children transitioning from one gender to another is understanding that, number one, we're dealing with children. These are kids. When I was a kid, I wanted to be Superman, then I wanted to be a giraffe, then I wanted to be something else. A child does not have the mental capacity to understand the ramifications of transitioning from one sex or gender to another. And I think it's asinine that we as adults would sit here and give a child the freedom and ability to make this life-altering decision. And I just noticed that in Maryland, they passed a new rule that states that if they can go to a psychologist or psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist can state that this child is mentally mature enough and capable of making a decision to transition, then the child at 12 years old does not even need to consent to it. To me, I'm like, really, people? These are kids. I mean, if you're trans, I forgot your name. I think it's Miss Never Ending Nina. When you was a child, be honest with everybody. Were you sure beyond a shadow of a doubt of who you were and what you wanted to be when you grew up? Yes or no?
Well, doctor, you might be asking the wrong one, because definitely I wasn't sure. I knew that from the very...
Tell me the truth.
Well, that's what I'm telling you. At the very age when I was a young person or a child, I knew and recognized all of my surroundings. And so, once again, you can state that from your place of view because you are not a trans person. And so, once again, if you knew that you did not identify in the body in which you were born into, you knew to say, oh, well, let me start analyzing around. Let me start looking for information. Let me get to understanding what this thing is about me that makes me different. And so that's the difference in the space of where you can say that for a little child. When children know at a certain age that they say they might not go into the medical process. I'll let you talk. Let me talk.
Go ahead, talk.
So, in that space, it's not necessarily saying that they go through the medical process. That's far down the line. But what they also are saying is that give that child their own autonomy of their body to actually go through that process with their parents and their guardians. It's not saying, oh, I'm at 5 and I recognize that I'm trans. Get me on the table. No. We're not saying that at all. It's just saying allow that child and that family to have those decisions and make those things for that child and that family, not you, Doc.
What age?
Never Ending Nina, I want to ask you the question that's going to circle the panel here. And why should Black people care whether children transition from one gender to another?
Once again, that's a part of medical care. And so if you look at the bigger picture of what we're dealing with now in this present day, is that we know that either way it's going to happen. And so that's the thing. We're either gonna do it in a safe space provided in those medical facilities, or those children who know within themselves that this is the space that they want to navigate, they're going to go out and do it another way. We don't want that way. We want to make sure that if we're in this country that is allotted all these freedoms and these rights to explore and do everything, if it's not harming anybody else, let it be that decision for that child and their family. Once again, if I am not involved, if I don't have a trans child, if I'm not trans myself, what I intend to do is just get the information, make sure I am not living in my bias to where I'm saying that these people can't do this, when you know, in fact, if something would happen to you that you know yourself to be true, you wouldn't want anybody to tell you you can't do something, because you know when somebody says that, you're going to do it anyway.
People didn't even want to wear masks. You're taking away my rights and my civil liberties. Oh my God, why I have to wear a mask?
Come on, man.
Greg, let's get to you. Tony, I see you agreeing with Never Ending Nina. We're coming back to you. Greg, why should Black people care about this issue?
Well, Black people should care because mainly the woke left is pushing this trans agenda on kids that they don't understand, and it's going to lead them to make decisions that they're not going to understand in the future. That's going to have outcomes for them that are going to be unfavorable. I mean, for example, there was a study from the Karolinska Institute that found that people who underwent sex reassignment were 19 times more likely to commit suicide. That's ultimately where you're going to push these kids to if you're pushing this stuff on them at a young age. And what Miss Nina is saying here is simply not backed up by the facts. She has an anecdotal example using herself to say, well, I knew exactly what I wanted to do and what I wanted to be as a kid, but that's just not true for most kids. As according to the International Review of Psychiatry, 80% of those seeking clinical care will lose their desire to identify with their non-birth sex. So most of these kids, they will grow out of this stuff. But see, the problem is that this agenda is so hideous that they say, oh, well, it's just social transitioning. That's where they start. And then they go to puberty blockers, which we don't know whether or not they're actually safe or not. There are no long-term studies to suggest that they're actually safe. And then they go to hormone treatments, okay, which feminizes them or gives them more masculine traits, okay? Those things, they're not reversible. Okay, some of those things are permanent, like deepening voice, growing breasts. Again, they're pushing things on these kids they're not going to understand. Ultimately, when they turn 18, that ends up being gender reassignment surgery. In some cases, we're talking about 16-year-old girls getting their breasts cut off. Again, a permanent decision that they're making. So, with that being said, Black people should care because pushing this on Black people ultimately could lead to these kids making decisions they're not going to understand that could possibly cost them their lives.
I always have an issue when people say pushing it. Pushing it. I don't know that it's necessarily being pushed. I think it's being brought to the forefront for people to experience. I don't know about pushing, and a lot of what you're saying is suggesting pray the gay away a little bit. Tony,
Tammi, don't say that.
I have two things that I want to mention. I think what's interesting is that grown people who don't occupy trans bodies are so obsessed with trans bodies. That's one. And then I think two, we talk about gender so heavily, but we don't talk about how gender is policed from the womb. If you are assigned male, you're a little boy. If you're assigned female, you're a little girl. If you're a girl, you have to wear pink and purple. If you're a boy, you have to wear blue and red. If you're a boy, you have to play basketball, football. If you're a girl, you can only play with Barbies. And the fact that everybody's saying, let kids be kids, let kids be kids. And that's true. I agree with let kids be kids, but with that comes the freedom to be and express however they feel, however they desire and feel. And we don't even allow them to do that because every gender is so policed from the womb. So of course, people are going to have an issue with me transitioning from one gender to the next because they already have this man-made gender construct that states this gender and sex does this and this one does this. So of course they're going to have an issue. And with me, my journey is spiritual. This divine feminine spirit soul, whichever you want to call it, was placed into this body. And so she, which are my pronouns, are navigating and how in this physical realm of how to make this physical body meet this spiritual soul that I am, this divine feminine that I am. And it's very simple for me.
This is such a good conversation. Dr. Usher, I'm coming to you because what Tony says is actually truth. I mean, haven't we as an American society pushed gender from the beginning? The
Yes.
XPO, haven't we decided that the male was going to be a male and that the female was going to be a female? Don't we assign pink to women and blue to men? Like, isn't that the truth?
About it.
Listen, you want to know the facts? You want to know the facts? The fact is, John William Money is the one that came
Well,
up
first
with
I want you to
gender.
answer the question.
Okay, go ahead. What was the question?
What Tony says, isn't that the truth? We push, if we're going to use that word, Greg, we do push gender before the baby is even born.
Okay,
We have gender reveal parties, for crying out loud.
I don't believe we push it
And
from the
burn
womb.
down half of California trying to reveal a gender.
Right.
No, we don't push it from the womb because, again, when you use the word gender, you got to understand our whole ideology of gender was based upon John William Money's falsified scientific research evidence that he came up with, and it's all falsified information. See, our whole construct of gender was already errant from the beginning. So for you to say that, well, we're doing this from the womb, well, number one, what does color got to do with gender? What does
Well, when you say it was
gender?
falsified, you're speaking of someone we
It
don't.
was created, the word
that's
gender
not-
identity, gender ideology, that's all created terms that was created by John William Money.
A construct.
It's his
I think,
construct.
but
He
I
created
think
it.
I think you're agreeing with Tony in that sense. Then
I think that guy created it, and I think that he manipulated his information to promote his agenda. But the reality is,
Which now
when you
everyone
come out that
adheres
room,
to.
I like pink. I wear pink all the time. I like playing with Barbie dolls. When I was a little kid, you can ask everybody. I would go hang out with girls. I would play out with the Barbie dolls. Ken
Greg,
and
I
Barbie,
see
ride
you
a horse.
seething over there, ready to jump in. I'm going to take a quick commercial break, and we're going to get you in, brother, next on Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. And today, the business of being Black is, should children be allowed to transition from one gender to another? Please welcome artist and community cultivator, Never Ending Nina, P-Valley actress and trans activist, Tony Bryce, Dr. Raphael Usher, and the host of Black Conservative Perspective, Greg Foreman. Greg, I know you wanted to get into that conversation when we headed into commercial break, so go for it.
Yeah. So, Tammy, I know it's hard for you to believe that this is actually being pushed on kids, but it actually is, because a lot of these kids are being peer pressured into this stuff. In fact, a 2019 study from Brown University found that parents of children experiencing gender dysphoria observed their teens feeling pressured to fit within a social group, right? So they're saying this stuff on TikTok, they're saying this stuff on social media, they're saying this stuff everywhere, and they're being pressured to try to fit in with what they feel is cool. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you guys can play this semantics game all you want to, and to try to play this game like, oh, you know, there's a difference between sex and gender. That's fine. You can have that. But we should organize a society around sex. There's a reason why when you're born, you're told that you're a male, you're a female. Chromosomes matter. Biology matters, right? XX chromosomes, female. XY chromosomes, male. Okay. You have a penis, you're a male. You got a vagina, you're a female, right? So with that being said, when you're talking about policy and how we organize society, we should organize a society around sex. You're talking about using bathrooms, okay? When you're talking about putting little boys in bathrooms with little girls, and they don't understand any of this stuff. You think nothing's gonna go wrong? Ask those parents in Loudoun County who have had experiences with kids being raped in the bathrooms because of this silly gender policy that they're putting in place. So with that being said, y'all can play the semantics game all you want to, but at the end of the day, we need to organize a society around sex. And at the end of the day, you cannot change your biology. Okay. If you're born a man, you are a man. If you're born a woman, you are a woman. And that's just what it is. Now, if you want to, be like a 3-year-old and play make believe like 3-year-olds do when they don't really know anything, fine. If you want to do that all your life, that's cool. But the fact is, most kids grow out of this stuff, and it is immoral to push that on them at a young age when they don't know exactly what they're doing, and they're going to undertake permanent changes that they're going to later on regret in life.
Tony, I want to get to what Greg is saying, because there is something very true about what Greg is saying. When I was 16 years old, well, I should say when I was probably 14 or 15 years old, I wanted a gold tooth because, they were in. And my grandmother said, well, you can get one if you still want one when you're 17. And when I was 17, I was like, yeah, I don't think I want that gold tooth in my mouth. So is there some truth to kids don't really know what they want or what they need at a certain age, Tony?
Well, I think what's interesting is the comparison to like trans or identity, specifically trans identities, to things like a gold or things like, oh, I wanted this and I grew out of it. This is not a phase. I am who I am and I stand in that. And like I mentioned earlier, to me, it's a spiritual thing. It's a soul thing. I feel like when you are a young person, just like Nina said earlier, when you're a young person, just like when I was young, I knew exactly who I was. So I feel like what I was saying earlier, if we stop policing everything from the womb, if we stop doing that and we allow children to express freely, because you want to talk about pushing, I feel like religion's beliefs and all of these laws and the rhetoric are rooted in religion. And to me, Christianity specifically, and if we want to be clear, Christianity is definitely the white privilege of religions, because that's why we're sitting up having this conversation. That's why we're having this conversation, because
Let me ask you this question. You keep talking about your experience as a child.
Hold that thought. Let her complete her thought. Go ahead,
Go ahead.
Because people cannot grasp the identity that this divine feminine or divine masculine was placed into this body, and we are on this journey to match the two. I don't understand, and for some people not match the two. We won't even get into that, because if y'all don't understand this, baby, we definitely ain't gonna understand gender non-conforming, non-binary, and all of the other things. But of course they're not gonna understand this. But what nobody will ever say is who we are is invalid or dismissed, because whether we are taking moans or not, because as a child, I never took a moan, but I'm still at 31 years old who I am. And we're gonna always be who we are, because as I mentioned, it's a soul thing for me. It's the spiritual journey.
Go ahead, Dr. Usher.
I just want to know, how old were you? Miss Nina and Miss Tori? 5 years old. And how old were you? I think
around that age.
Around 5 years old, okay? So you're telling me, magically at the age of 5, you realized that you were a different gender stuck in a different different body.
No, when we say realization, that just means that for me, I make I statements. For me, I analyze my situation and surroundings. No one forced me to. Yes, no one forced me to do anything. I started to recognize how my mother and father treated my brother and how my mother and father treated my sister. And I knew that I was somewhere in between, because I was like, wait a minute, something is not registering, but something is registering. So it took it upon myself to actually do the research, talk to my parents, talk to some of my people at the schools, start asking questions to be like, and then doing my own analysis, not taking anything, not going say I need to get on a surgery table, not doing any of that, but just allowing me the space to soak up information that is not pushed upon me, that I knew. I say, well, if I'm feeling this way, I need to find out why I am feeling this way. I need to look at scientific research to find out, now that's me. Because I knew education is power. And so once again, no one forced that to me. It was my own analysis to go and see this and seek this. And also, Gregory, I want to ask you, you do a lot of flying? Do you do a lot of flying?
Yes.
So when you have to use the restroom and it's only one restroom on the airplane, do you use that restroom?
Yes.
All right. So if it doesn't have a male or female,
only one person using that restroom. You're exactly
right. So only one person goes into the restroom. They recognize they want to use the restroom. And also do the research on if you have people who are trans identified actually go into restrooms and rape people. So see, that's the narrative.
I'm not saying that.
Yes, you might have, but also the way that you worded it was though trans people are always predators or predators and go on and seek that. When you do the actual research, you can find out that no trans people in that category has ever did that in bathrooms. All we want to do is use the restroom and leave.
It was on the news.
Well,
but see, y'all bringing it.
I'm just being real. I mean,
you're compartmentalizing it in a different way. We're talking about children. We're talking about children.
Let's let Greg respond.
Okay, I gave an example of what happened in Loudoun County that parents experienced, in which, because of their bathroom policies, because of these things they're allowing. I'm not saying that all transgender individuals do this. Most of them are very peace-loving, great people like you guys, right? Obviously. But what I'm just saying is that those are the unintended consequences that can happen. Again, most of them, no, it doesn't happen, but I'm just saying, even if you're not trans, if you're allowing boys who just say, hey, you know what, I feel like a girl one day, to go in a bathroom with little girls, what do you think is going to happen? Especially these kids going through puberty. right? Those are, again, it's not about trans individuals. It's about the fact that when you're mixing up boys and girls like this, and you're telling them that they can switch back and forth on any day they want, and we don't care about what bathroom you use, unintended consequences are going to happen. Now, I want to,
but no one is saying that though, Gregory. No one is saying that.
Hold on. This conversation is about what society, right? Should we allow kids to transition? You guys have used anecdotal evidence this whole time, okay, to talk about yourselves. But the fact of the matter is, most kids are not like you. They will transition out of this. They will say, hey, you know what? This is not me. I am my assigned sex at birth, okay? The same way that you guys, you're still your assigned sex at birth, no matter how much divine feminine that you get. You're born a man, you're a man, and that's
we're not born men or women, though. We're not born men or women, and I'm tired of hearing that narrative. Nobody is born a man or a woman.
Do you have XY chromosomes?
You're assigned, guys.
Let's let Tony get her thought in.
We are assigned male, female, and or intersex. We are not born man nor woman. That is something that we transition to. Should we? We transition into that, like I mentioned earlier. The societal gender construct states that male equals boy, female equals girl. So while you can freely say boy and girl, and I'm not going to correct you because you know it is what it is. However, you will not sit on here and say we were born men and women, because we were not. We were assigned male, female, and intersex at birth.
You have an XY chromosome
about intersex. We haven't even spoken about that.
You have an XY chromosome, right?
Exactly.
But see, that's the space that you.
No. You have an XY chromosome. We're talking about biology. You have an XY chromosome.
Well, we're trying to talk, not scream. I don't want to scream at you.
Go ahead.
So once again, in this space, in conversation, is that in science, yes, I am not a biological woman. I am a trans woman. That's me stating that.
We are going to go to commercial break. Come right back. XY chromosome. Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. I'm Tammi Mack, and today the business of being Black is, should children be allowed to transition from one gender to the next? Now, Greg asked Never Ending Nina if she had XY chromosomes. So I want to ask, does the biology and the science of being a certain sex, what does that mean to the LGBTQIA community when we discuss transitioning?
Well, that's for the people, and I'll just jump in. So once again, acknowledging the facts, like Gregory had asked, I am not a biological woman. I am a proud trans woman. And so with all intents and purposes, yes, if you say that I'm born with this and, use that science, sure. But that does not negate the fact that I am a living being here, acknowledging that I am a Black trans woman. And so with all intents and purposes, I navigate through this space as that. And so that's not to negate that. That's just the simple truth of the matter. And so a lot of people bringing it back to children is that we're not saying that they have to do or get to the place to where I'm at, who have lived the experience of being known as a trans woman. They're saying that at that age, just like everybody else, go through the phases, if you want to call it, let them, and in the supervision of their guardian, in their household, in their family, in the autonomy of themselves and their body, say, if I know myself to be this, give me all the rights and intents and purposes to explore that under the safety of my parental guardian and under the safety of the proper procedures and medical research space to give me that opportunity to explore that. That's all I'm saying regarding that.
Tony, you talked about your journey being a spiritual one, but Greg talks about the science of it all. So can you speak to the science?
Well, I feel like there's science to affirm anybody's belief in who they are. There's science that affirms who we are as trans folks, as we talk about neurons and how we're all, female at one point in our journey in utero. Like, there's science to affirm everything. But at the end of the day, science is, you're not going to rule my life with science. It's just not going to happen. At the end of the day, you're not going to rule my life with science, because whether you feel that science is the base of every conversation you want to have, okay, you can have that, you go with that. But at the end of the day, we are always, because again, it is a spiritual journey, and from my perspective, find who we are, and we will make that journey no matter how hard, no matter what we have to go through, no matter what laws we have to battle through, no matter what panels we have to sit on and be told we're not this and that. We will always find our way to who we are, because it is a spiritual divine journey. And that's just that on that.
Go ahead.
Science. You don't want this to be determined by science, but you do understand that there's a thing called social science, psychology and sociology, and based on the mere fact that you're living your life based on a sociological construct, that to me is kind of hypocritical, because you're trying to negate science on one side, but yet you're justifying it through social science on the other, because social science is the one that's saying that you have the ability to be transgender and you can transition from one gender to another. So how do you rectify the hypocrisy?
Well, for me, it's not for me. At the end, I don't know. I feel like y'all want an answer that y'all are not going to get. Where I'm never going to agree with the perspective. I'm never going to be rooted from these articles and these science. I have lived experience that y'all don't have. I have lived experience every day when I wake up. I have a lived experience. And if I am choosing to say that I'm resisting the binary, but I'm also a part of that binary because I identify as the Black woman of trans experience and not somebody who's gender nonconforming, blah, 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 or if I don't identify with the sex and gender I was assigned at birth, then that is my journey.
You have the right as an adult to make that decision, I believe. I think every adult at the age of 18 legally has the right to make the decision. But when you're talking about children, this is what I have a problem with. Because the question initially that was asked was, why should Black people care about this issue? For one reason, it's called pharmacological slavery. Because once those kids transition, they're going to be enslaved to the pharmacology for the rest of their lives. So they're going to have to pay for that medication. And now those big pharma is going to make billions of dollars off of these kids who will transition into adulthood and be dependent upon this medication for survival for the rest of their lives. To me, this is just another form of slavery. This
But I don't know, Dr. Usher, I don't know. Dr. Usher, I was trying to follow you. I just don't know if I can follow you there, because now we got to bring in diabetes, high cholesterol, high blood pressure. I mean, we already live off of these medications.
Okay, let me take it one step
further. We're not going to go and blame all of that on nobody transitioning for sure.
Look. Where there's money to be made, these people will make money. And we all know who these people are, Big Pharma. They want to make money, period. But another issue that we're failing to look at too is that for 300 years, one race of people has always tried to remove us from the planet. And they're always concerned about the overpopulation of Black people. Well, there's only one way to control overpopulation of Black people. That's to kill us, put us on drugs, or make us sterile. So what do you think is going on here? Because when you look at the global science, where they're saying that in 2021, the world's going to be overpopulated, and if we don't do something about it now, we're not going to have enough food or resources to survive. And where's the global population booming at? Africa. These people are spooked because Africa, Black people are blowing up the population numbers, and they're not. And so what do you think they're trying to do to us? I think this is just another ploy. This is my conspiracy rappy coming out. I think that this is just another one of those ploys to figure out a way to basically shut down the Republican
are stretching it. Greg.
I know I am. I'm just saying, it's got the conspiracy side coming out.
Greg, at what age do you think children should be able to make a decision about things in their life?
18. I mean, we don't let kids smoke cigarettes before they turn 18. We don't let them drink before they turn 18. We don't let them do all types of things before they turn 18. So why in the world would we let them cut off their breasts, give them hormones, puberty blockers, things that are unproven to be safe, okay, and that can have permanent effects on them? And I want to get back to Tony and his point about
Wait, Gregory.
I want to get back to
Gregory.
No, I want to get back to your point.
If we in a space of respect, their name is on the board.
Well,
so make sure
I refer to Tony by her name. I refer to Tony by her name.
But you said
he. You said he.
Listen,
that was disrespectful.
Okay, all right, listen.
It's a blank space.
Tony,
keep it safe.
When we talk about biology, okay, biology matters, right? We breathe oxygen. No matter how much you want to, right? You may want to. If you go breathe carbon dioxide, you'll die. Okay, so biology matters. Okay, we have to organize our society and how we structure ourselves as a society based off biology, because it matters. And you guys want to talk about gender being a social construct. Well, I would argue that Gender, in terms of how you guys see it, may be a social construct, but it's also still a function of biology. There's a reason why mothers tend to be caretakers, because hormonally, they have more estrogen that allows them to, be better caretakers of children. There's a reason why men play the roles of protectors, because we have more testosterone, we have more muscle mass, we have greater bone density. Biology plays a role in everything, including how we socialize. So when you try to take biology out of the equation, essentially you can't do that, right? Again, we can't live in this world where we're playing make-believe and to say, hey, you know what, you can be whatever you want to be. Because that's how you get a dysfunctional society where, which we're almost at, where you're pushing kids into this lifestyle that they don't understand, and it's going to have terrible long-term effects.
It's not a lifestyle, it's a gender identity. And I really hope that me being mispronounced and misgendered stays in this segment.
Listen, I just want to know, what age do you guys as transgender individuals?
Hold on, Dr. Usher, you asking too many questions and not answering questions here.
I'm sorry,
Exactly.
I'll ask questions.
Let's reel this in. I do want to, first of all, apologize to Tony. We will leave this a respectful space. And Tony has said at the top of the show that her pronouns are her and she. And so we should respect that regardless of our personal beliefs.
Tammi, let me ask you a question. Do you think it's not disrespectful to me to have to acknowledge somebody by something that does not fit their biology? Do you think,
Greg,
when is my beliefs actually valid?
What I think is, I would never call you out of your name, and that's where your respect goes. And
you're forcing me to call somebody that doesn't fit their biology. That's what you're forcing me to do. That's not a name. I'll call Tony their name, but you can't force me to say something that's not true. It's just not. It doesn't match up reality.
You misidentified her. And it is disrespectful. It is disrespectful.
It's disrespectful to make me do that. I have to do it, even though it doesn't match reality.
You don't have to do that. You can call her Tony.
I called her Tony, but
sometimes
I gotta use pronouns. And I don't want to play this game because it doesn't match biology and reality.
It's not a game. I walk and I wake up every day as who I am. I walk in these shoes every day. It's not a game. It is not a game. And if I was in a man's restroom and a man walked in, they would think they were in the wrong restroom. It is never a game.
Look,
so my pronouns, the way I identify, is never a game.
Let's take a break. Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. I'm Tammi Mack. Hi there. So today, I don't know how the topic can get any hotter, frankly, especially with my panel. We are talking about children transitioning from one gender to another. Listen, a teenager's brain is not fully developed until they are 25 years old. Are they capable of making the decision about their gender identity before they reach that age at all, Dr. Usher?
Absolutely not. The science backs it up. And even if you don't want to follow the science, listen, sociology backs it up. And see, one of the things that we got to look at when we're dealing with what we call gender dysphoria, and that's what the real issue is. We're dealing with children who may be suffering from gender dysphoria. Now, when you're dealing with gender dysphoria, the way we normally try to, educate people with dealing with dysphoria is by teaching the parents and others around them how not to trigger the dysphoria in the first place. Because if the person is feeling like they are, let's be honest, they're feeling like they are a certain gender, then when we're dealing with dysphoria, the rule, the psychological rule in the way the APA stated was this, it's very clear, that you do not address the issue that's causing the dysphoria. So if a person wants to be identified as a girl, dysphoric people, we don't address them as a girl. But now the game has changed. There are rules being written by people who are not in psychology, who are stating that no, you should go ahead and affirm this more dysphoria behavior. And I don't think it's right because number one, the child is not mentally mature enough. And by doing that, we're actually subliminally encouraging this mentality and this behavior, which causes me deep concern. And one of the things I want to bring up with, I believe, Tony mentioned when she was a child that she noticed that her siblings were treated differently. And so
that was Nina. That was me.
I'm sorry,
Nina.
Ms. Nina stated that. And that brings up another issue that we tend to ignore in this whole debate, where is this nature or nurture? And this is clearly evidence of a nurture. This is not something that naturally occurs in nature. Nature does not transition from one gender to another. There's never been another species on the planet other than human beings that are doing this. So when she brought up her
Dr. Usher, they have so many
that was a
species
nurture
in
experience.
the nature. They have so many species in the nature's kingdom that transition, that identify both sexes. They have so many examples in regards to that. Everyone do your research regarding that. But I want to get to you, Dr. Usher. Do you have children?
Yes.
So if your child comes to you, or if they came to you at that, I don't know how old they are right now, but if they express to you that they identify as trans, or they want to get more information about that, you as a parent, what would be your first interaction to do?
Okay, as a doctor, my first thing is when a child
I'm talking about a parent.
As a parent, if a child comes to me and uses the word trans,
a different thing when a parent.
I'm just saying, I'm as a parent, if my child comes to me and says the word trans, I'm going to immediately think she's been indoctrinated. Because a child doesn't normally come to a parent saying, hey, I feel like a trans person. Now, my child came to me and say, hey, Dad, I kind of feel like, I'm not comfortable in my body. And then I will explore.
They're still recognizing that they're trans. They may not have the words and the definition. I too say that to my parents.
Right.
That's what I'm saying, doctor. That's what I'm saying. As a child, when I was that age, I expressed it, but as a grown adult, I now have the vernacular to express that more. So what my parents allowed me to do was, as my parents allowed me to do, is say, okay, well, how does that make you feel? What do you mean by that? And so nobody ushered me into that space, but they allowed me to explore that and express myself in that way to where it was my own definition. No one else ushered that into me.
So there are two things here that I want to touch on. Greg said something that that's pretty factual. We don't allow, if you're under 18, you do not. You can't join the military. You can't smoke. You can't drink. You can't drive if you're under the age of 13. But Tony, we've kind of touched on this a little bit when I mentioned, my grandmother and my gold tooth thing. And you said it's a hard comparison to make, maybe even offensive comparison to make. But that is true. So why would a parent allow their child who isn't 18 or above to begin a transition? What would be the purpose of that?
Because that parent supports that child. That parent wants that child to know that they love and care and see them. And I think the reason why those comparisons can be offensive is because what we're not saying is those things are rooted in choice. There's a choice to smoke a cigarette. There's a choice to get a gold tooth. There's a choice to do whatever. There's a choice. And people want to say, we choose. The only thing I have ever chosen on my journey is to be happy and to live in my truth. And that's just that on that. So so wrapping up my point, that's what I feel in terms of the parents. They want their child to be supported, because those of us that grew up in the 90s and before, we didn't have the representation. We didn't know, and we didn't have the visuals. So to your point earlier, Nina, we wouldn't have had the vernacular, the verbiage that we have present day. But you can go ahead, Nina.
So I want to ask this question real quick. If I'm a parent, right, and my child comes to me and says, hey, I'm feeling I don't feel like I'm myself. I feel different than the other kids. And these are the things that through my journey with speaking and interviewing people who have transitioned as an adult say that they have said as a child, right? So if my child comes to me and says those things, is it okay as a parent to say, I see how you feel. I understand how you feel. Let's talk about what that means. Let's get some therapy to kind of flush out what that is without having them transition?
I think it's
that's a space.
Acknowledge it without the transition happening.
And so that's a part of the actual transition experience, and that's the journey. And so to piggyback to go back to that, Tammi, what you said, that all those things before 18, those are all external things. Internally, if I feel and I know myself to be this thing, that thing will never change. And so, yes, they have trans people in the Army, they have trans people in the Navy, they have trans people everywhere because they also sat and did the research to find out that's how they identify. Now, what the point that you said, Tammy, is that is a space that they have so many parents now acknowledging and say, I do not understand, but because I love my child, but because I do not want to see my child on the streets, because I do not want to see my child commit suicide, because I want to see my child just make sure that they're in the comforts of a safe space to explore that thing that they possibly might not adhere to. But who is it hurting to where I can then say, as my child said that they identify as this, I'm going to make sure that I, as a parent, show up and help them. It does not hurt the child.
Absolutely.
It does not hurt the child.
It hurts the child.
But this is the research that
I want to get Greg in here. Conservatives, Greg, are usually against the principle of big government, right? Telling people what to do with their bodies, their minds, whatever. Why are you in favor of the government implementing laws that prohibit transgender activities? Or is it just with children? Because that may be the case.
Well, on my show, I always tell my audience that I'm a conservative when it comes to kids. I'm a libertarian when it comes to adults. I don't care about what you want to do as an adult. If you want to transition, if you want to cut off parts of your body, if you want to pretend to be whatever, that's fine. No big deal to me. Okay. I have no problems with that. But when we're talking about kids, it is established, and most conservatives agree with this, that, yeah, we should protect kids from things that they're not aware of the dangers of. And this should be one of those things, just like we protect them from smoking, drinking. If a parent is allowing their child to do that, we're gonna accuse that parent of child abuse, right? When they're allowing their kids to participate in activities that are going to be harmful to them, right? This is almost no different to me in the sense that this stuff is harmful to these kids. There's no evidence to suggest that the long-term use of hormones, puberty blockers are safe, okay? And ultimately, you're pushing these kids to do something that most of them will grow out of. A lot of this stuff is being socialized on them, and it's not something that is actually them. And that is
when you do know that trans people don't take pills. There are some trans people that don't take pills.
That's fine. What I'm saying is that the problem.
Complete his thought here.
The problem is what we're pushing these kids into, what it leads to. A lot of these kids don't really have gender dysphoria. What they really have is anxiety, depression. We need to be treating them for other mental illnesses and not just assuming that, well, they're trans. That's not the case most of the time.
Take a break, come right back. Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. I am Tammi Mack, and today the Business of Being Black is, should children transition? Greg, you were completing a thought before break.
Yes, children, again, should not be allowed to transition because they're being pushed into something that most of them they don't identify with, okay? And at the end of the day, there's just no evidence that this stuff is actually safe. And I understand that not all children, take, hormone blockers, puberty blockers or whatever. But the problem is that when you push this stuff on kids at a young age, that is what they eventually will get into. Okay. Now, again, all of them don't. But I'm just saying the ones that do, there's an issue. Now, when you get to turn 18, do whatever you want to do. I really don't care. But when it comes to children, leave the children out of this. Let them decide at 18. I don't see what the con is of just making them wait to the 18 and then they can transition and do whatever they want to do with their lives.
So as a parent, Greg, what would you say to your child who came to you and said that they felt uncomfortable in their body?
Well, I would say something similar to what you said in the last segment, in which you say, hey, listen, I understand that you're having these feelings. However, you were born male or female, whichever one that matches. That's what you were born. And we're going to get you some help.
Like that.
We're going to get you.
Didn't say that.
We're going to get
you. Didn't say that like that.
Him for doing it. You asked him a question, they gave an answer. Now, as a doctor, the first thing that we would look at is
let's let Greg complete his thought.
Yeah, we're gonna you were born male, female, whatever, right? And we're gonna get you some help. Okay, we're gonna get you some therapy, some help, and we're gonna let you try to figure this out. But I'm not going to be pushing it on them. I'm not going to be affirming their gender. I'm not going to be pushing hormone. I'm not doing any of that stuff. Now, when they turn 18, if they want to do that, if they still feel in their mind that this is who I am, do what you want to do.
Gregory, do you have children?
I do not.
Oh, okay.
But I will not end up like Dwayne Wade.
Gregory and I are in the same position.
You possibly cannot end up like Dwayne Wade because Dwayne Wade has taken the time to actually enhance their child's life.
His child was indoctrinated by his kids.
Well, you say that, so that's a diss. So once again, that's a diss to him acknowledging that he was uncomfortable at first with his child, acknowledging that, but he did the research within his own community to find out how he can show up for his child. So once again, yes, again, you can have that opinion, but the slight jab of him in his family saying, this is how I'm gonna show up for my daughter. That's not saying that he's not that's not saying he's not a good father. But what you did right there was slight him in the fact that he showed up for his daughter.
Go ahead, Dr. Usher.
I think it's inappropriate I think it was Dwayne Wade, right? I think it was inappropriate for him to do that in the first place because what he's doing is he's ignoring.
But you're not in his family.
Okay, I don't want to get into that. I don't want to get into
right.
that.
We're talking about
the issue is you're ignoring the underlying issue.
Hold that thought, Dr. Usher.
When they're going through the issue, because of depression.
Hold that thought. Tell us about OMI International. That's what I want to get into.
Why you want to get on International? That's an international association of ministries, churches, and ministers that operate around the globe to equip, send, and support the work of the gospel. That's our primary operation there. And we do have a community, global community impact program where we just go into different communities and provide community services. And I don't mention that publicly on purpose because I don't want, the work that are being done in those communities to be impacted by any negative feelings from this show that, certain
that you might fail.
Because we do have LGBT, I should say LGB members in our program that participate.
Really?
And yeah, we do. Our program does not discriminate on anything. If you want to come, you want to learn a service, you want to help, want to learn a program, whatever, we're there to make sure that, we provide the service to the child and to the family.
Tony, we see you on P-Valley. Whoa, y'all look, excited about the new season. So tell us what else we can see you on. Big screen, small screen, any screen?
Well, P-Valley has been the biggest thing. There's something else, but I can't release it because I can say it's an Untitled Marvel season.
Oh, I hate when you actresses say that. Ugh.
You sign certain documents and, you can't say certain things, but P-Valley returns on June 3rd. And I'm very excited because my character is coming back as a recurring character this season. The character of Nineveh, which, all you Bible scholars will know the story of Nineveh. But yes, I'm very excited. And I just want to say to you, Tammi, thank you to you and your team for having us here, because a lot of times when these conversations are being had, we are not invited to the table to have these conversations. So thank you.
You're welcome. Greg, Black Conservative Perspective.
Yeah, you can check out my show mainly on YouTube, in which I give a conservative perspective from a Black man's point of view. If you want to keep up with the latest in politics, what's going on with the culture war, conversations like these about stories like, similar to, the topic that we're talking about, you can check it out there.
Where can we go?
Black Conservative Perspective on YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter at GForemanBCP, Instagram at GForemanBCP.
All right. Never ending, Nina. Talk about it. You always got something going on.
Well, thank you, Tammi. Just released my project entitled President. That's available to download everywhere. Just released my new music video entitled Soul. So go support that. Also look up Unique Women's Coalition as well as the Ahmad Institute. They are Black LGBTQIA plus resource centers that are doing the actual work in the Black community to show up in all intersections to help provide resources for everybody Black, everybody LGBTQIA plus. And I just want to send a shout out to, if you want to do the work, if you want to support, if you want to show up for Black people in all the intersections, go look at Unique Women's Coalition as well as the Ahmad Institute.
Great. I always like to end the show with how we can come together, how we can maybe, I don't know, come together. I guess I said it enough. So I want to start with you, Dr. Usher. One word, which I know is very hard for you to do. Very hard for you to do. In one word, Dr. Usher, how can we, I guess, how should I say this today? I usually have a question that pops right up. But in one word, how can we live together?
Coexist.
I'm sorry, say that again.
The word is coexist.
Thank you. How can we coexist?
The way we coexist is simply by understanding that we're never going to believe what you believe, and you may never believe what we believe. And if we respect each other's differences of opinion.
That is not one word, Dr. Usher.
Well, yeah, I said coexist.
Oh, coexist was your word.
It was
Okay.
not one word.
I thought you was helping me out. You know, I thought you were saying, how can we coexist? Okay, yes. Tony, how can we coexist?
Love. Why not? Love.
Never ending Nina?
Respect the person. That's 3, but I had to respect the person.
We can go with respect. Aretha, R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Greg, you get to wrap us up today. How can we coexist? How can we?
Understanding.
I like that. I like that understanding. I also like talk, but maybe it's because I have a talk show. Thank you so much, Greg, for being here. Tony, Never Ending Nina, and Dr. Usher. The TGIF is up next. TGIF up next on Foxsoul.